Hello, I hope you're having a good day. I want to talk to you about my top 5 productivity hacks. It's something I've been getting into a lot more recently. I've been really trying to save time and just be more productive with how I use my time. And just from different research, reading books, watching YouTube videos, these are the top 5 things right now for me that help me be a lot more productive. So, just a quick overview of what they are. Remove notifications. You got to schedule everything. You need to use maybe lists, which are kind of like to-do lists, but a little bit different. You need to create a highlight for the day, and you got to go to bed. I find with these things, these are my most high leverage productivity hacks right now that really get me in the groove, get things done much faster, and use my time much better. So, the first one, remove notifications. This has been a huge one for me. It's totally changed how I do things. I've removed notifications almost completely from my phone. The only thing I get notifications from, like push notifications that come up on the front screen, are from text messages and phone calls, but I still have do not disturb on almost 95% of the day. And this has been huge because I don't get distracted by things. A lot of times we can create distractions ourselves or we don't feel like doing something and we go on our phone, we go look for things and stuff like that. But also it can be that something pops up on our phone. We get a notification and it completely can throw the groove off of how you're working and how you're getting things done. So for me, that's been big. So like Facebook Messenger, I don't get notifications. WhatsApp, I don't get notifications. I also don't have on my phone even social media apps or anything like that because I just find they're just rabbit holes that I get stuck going down and I can end up wasting a lot of time. This has been a huge thing on my laptop as well. I have Microsoft Teams on there still. I still have Outlook on there. I still have my own email accounts and things like that, but I don't leave them open. Because when you leave them open, then you get the little ding or you get the little notification and you're tempted to go over there and look at it and respond right away. But then it completely throws off your flow and it's very difficult to get back into it once you have your flow going. So I recommend taking just completely shutting down, say, Microsoft Teams, or if you have Slack, or if you have Outlook, or Gmail, whatever it is, just don't have it open, and then batch these processes, meaning take a half hour in the morning and a half hour in the afternoon to look at it, find out what you need to get, and answer these emails and those questions then that come to you or that people send to you. I find it's much more efficient that way, and I can get hours of very productive work done without getting distracted or getting interrupted by things. And I find most of the time the things I get aren't that important. Nothing's life shattering on my phone. If someone needs to get a hold of me, they call me twice. If it's a real emergency, they can get a hold of me. I still check my phone every now and again for text messages and things like that because really, if there's anything that important, that's how someone's going to get a hold of me. It's not going to be by an email. It's not going to be by something on MS Teams. It's going to be by my actual phone, which I'm still getting. The other things a lot of times end up being distractions and taking me away from the real work I'm trying to do. So, schedule everything. This is the second one for me that's been really big, and particularly Parkinson's Law. So, this is something I got from Ali Abdaal, learned this from him, or learned the idea of this law from him. It's work expands so as to fill the time available for its completion. And this has been huge for me. It can sometimes feel like things are going to take forever. It takes many hours, and you give it many hours, and then it ends up taking many hours. But with Parkinson's Law, the idea is if you give a task 5 hours, it's going to take 5 hours. If you give it 2 hours, it's going to take 2 hours because you're going to figure out how to get it done in there. Now, of course, there's times where that doesn't happen and things balloon out of control and you didn't realize all these things that were going to come with it. Fair enough. But most of the time, you can cut things back tremendously by just cutting the amount of time you have with it. So I schedule my whole day. I schedule in half-hour increments, and sometimes it ends up working, sometimes it doesn't, but still it helps me know exactly what I'm going to be doing, and it knows how long I have for a task. So I just use a basic calendar app like Google Calendar. You can use iPhone or Apple Calendar, any other calendar you want to use. That doesn't really matter. What comes with this as well is artificial deadlines. So maybe you have something that's due next Tuesday, but you set an artificial deadline of having it done by Friday. So once again, it shrinks the amount of time you have, and it can make things get done faster and sooner. Then I create hard stops too. So maybe I'm working on an assignment and I say, okay, I got 2 hours to work on it. So even if I'm not done after the 2 hours, I'm stopping because it can be very easy to just keep going and just keep pushing. But I find it's better to just stop. Okay, I've worked my 2 hours and then I'm going to schedule more time for it later. But then once again, I'm not letting the task control how my time is used. I'm controlling how my time is used. And it can be a very subtle difference, but I find it can make a very big impact on how our time is actually used. So this has been a cool thing I learned too. This is from the book Make Time that I read. It was recommended by Ali Abdaal, but I read the book as well. It's called Make Time. And one of the things they talk about is to-do lists, but more specifically, maybe lists. So I find my to-do list can get huge. They can just keep racking up and racking up and racking up, and it can become overwhelming. So instead, I have a maybe list. So you add things to the list, but it doesn't mean you're going to do them. It doesn't mean they have to get done right now. It doesn't mean they have to be done in that order. It's more things so you don't have to remember them. So once they're there, you know, okay, today I'm going to focus on this thing, or I'm going to focus on this task. And we'll talk about that more in the highlight section. But then you know you don't have to remember these things, so you kind of lose a little bit of that anxiety and worry, I'm going to forget about this. But as well, it doesn't become overwhelming. So I find this is very helpful. And I put AKA create backlog. So if you've ever worked in the agile development environment or work environment, a big thing is the backlog. So you have all these tasks that are in the back that aren't going to be worked on right now, but you're tracking them to know that they're there. And I find it's very helpful for my own life as well, even for tasks around the house or for school or for work. Just have these lists of things because you're going to be working on things. You're going to realize, oh, actually, I realize now I need to do this as well. And that leads to C, D, and E as well. But they don't need to be worried about right now, but I don't want to forget about them. So you put them in your backlog. You put them on your maybe list. And then when you go through and you schedule your day and you look through your maybe list and you see, oh, actually, this needs to be done, this needs to be done, this needs to be done. The rest of these things, I don't need to worry about them right now, but they're there. So another big one is create a highlight. This is from the book Make Time as well. And it's choosing one thing to focus on for the day. So you can do this the night before. I kind of like doing that. You can also do it in the morning of. But it's choosing one thing. And maybe it's a work item. Maybe it's like, you know what, I'm going to work on this assignment today. Like I said, maybe you just schedule a certain amount of time, but it's like, this is my thing I want to try and get done today. Or I want to try and make progress on. Because maybe it's not a one-day task, but you want to really get some good effort put into it and really get a good chunk out of it. So you use that as your highlight. I find this can be helpful because it can be very difficult to know, okay, what is it I should focus on today? Obviously, I need to do many things, but what is my one thing? What is what the day hinges on? Or what's the teeter-totter? What's the thing that's holding it in the middle? If I get this done, it can kind of get everything else done as well. Or I can at least maybe give me that momentum to feel like I can get the rest of it done. And I find this can be very, very helpful as well. To have that one thing that you focus on. And maybe it's something just fun for the day that you want to do. It's like, you know what, I want to take my kids on a walk, or I want to go on a walk with my wife, or I want to watch this movie, or whatever it is. But you have that one thing that you're focused on, and kind of it shapes the way the rest of your day goes. And you have that highlight there to ensure it gets attention so you know you've gotten there. And I find once I complete that highlight, it's like, oh, okay, my day, I've actually gotten something done today. Because we all have those days where you look back, you're like, what did I get done? What did I do? It feels like I was spinning my wheels all day and moving, and I'm tired, but I don't really feel like I got anything done. And this can kind of help. So it can give you that focus to know what direction you need to go. It can also give you that sense of accomplishment at the end of the day where it gives you that motivation to keep moving the next day. So the last one I want to talk about here for the top 5 productivity hacks for me right now is going to bed. And yes, I got the 2 exclamation marks there for a reason. Because for me, at least, I know some people can function off very little sleep, or at least they think they can, or at least that's what they say happens. But for me, I need my good sleep. I got to get at least good 7 hours of sleep. If I don't have that, then I find my mind is wandering the next day. I can't focus the same way. My temper's a little shorter. I don't quite have the patience I would otherwise. And it just makes everything in the day that little bit more difficult. It's a little bit more of a grind. And maybe it's not the first day, maybe it's not the second day I didn't sleep good, or maybe it's not the third day. But after a few days of doing that, it starts to wear on you. And it's just harder and harder. And then you get to the point where it's like, it's hard to go to sleep because you're still thinking about work. And when you are asleep, you're waking up because you're thinking about work. And then when you wake up in the morning, you're thinking about work. And your mind's never getting that time to rest. And I'm no scientist about sleep or anything like that, but I do know from what I've read and heard by people that are much smarter than me, your brain works on things at night. It focuses on things. It kind of refreshes things in your head. And so it can be a very good way to solve problems. So if you have a problem at work or life or a technical problem, something like that, sleep can be a great way to be able to massage it, kind of put it into your subconscious and really being able to work on it. But there's some things I find, at least for myself, I got to put in place to make sure I get that good sleep. So I got to turn my screens off. I try to at least turn screens off an hour before bed. It can seem like a bit much, but when I really started looking at what is it I do an hour before bed, it's usually that last hour of Netflix that you're watching where you're kind of watching, kind of not, but you're tired, so you don't really know. But so then I take that time in the evening. It's like, okay, if I'm going to go to bed at 10, because I know I'm going to wake up at 6:30, so I got that 8.5 hour window. I'll probably get about actual 7 hours of sleep there because I track it on my Fitbit. I know about average, that's what I need. So it's like, okay, 9 o'clock, screen's got to go off. From there, maybe I take some time to journal. You brush your teeth, you take your supplements, maybe do a little stretching. You talk with maybe whoever you live with, and you find actually an hour before bed, it doesn't take that much time. Maybe you read a book for a little bit because you've been wanting to read a book. You got those stack of books you've been wanting to get through, but you keep saying you don't have time for them. Now you just got that time built in, and it helps you go to sleep. And I find, too, to even build up to that time of shutting it off at 9 o'clock, I got to stop working at a predetermined time. So for me, I try and stop working at 5 o'clock best I can. If there's a deadline, something's got to get done, fair enough. But I find I got to have that time where my mind winds down for the evening. So I try and stop about 5 o'clock in the evening. It's time to spend time with kids, with the wife, have a good meal, hang out, and just have fun and not be thinking about school or be thinking about work. And it can feel like it's wasted time, especially when you feel like you got a lot to do, or there's a lot of things that need to happen. But I tell you what, I am so much more productive the next day. I could push it for that extra 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 hours in the evening, but I'm not getting as much done even in those 5 hours as I would the first hour the next day by winding down in the evening, hanging out, having fun, having a good meal, getting to bed on time, turning the screens off. That next hour in the morning that I spend, boom, those problems are getting solved. Those issues I was having, those technical difficulties I couldn't figure out, my brain's been working on it. It's relaxed. It's kind of in a good state then. It's not frazzled because it hasn't really been able to relax or shut off. And I'm good to go then. So that's been huge for me as well. And at the end of the day, your health comes first. It's not worth an extra even 20% on your marks for school. It's not worth that little bit, maybe that little tiny extra that you get at work in the long term. And it's all about perspective. Is this going to matter in 10 days? Is this going to matter in 10 months? Is this going to matter in 10 years? Well, I can tell you what, your sleep is going to. In 10 days, it's going to matter if you went to bed on time. In 10 months, it's going to matter if you've been going to bed on time for 10 months or you haven't been. And in 10 years, it's going to be as well. There's a lot of studies, a lot of different diseases that show up by not getting good sleep. And it's just going to haunt you. It's not going to work out well in the long run. Sure, if there's deadlines that got to get done, you got to put your nose to the grindstone, do what you got to do. And I know not everyone agrees with this point, but I know for myself, I'm going to be much higher productivity. There's going to be a much higher level of productivity. I'm going to be able to push more. I'm going to get a lot more done the next day and a lot less time if I can get that good sleep. And so that means stopping work at a predetermined time, shutting off the screens, and making sure I get that time to sleep. So just a quick review of what I brought up here. So the 5 productivity hacks that I'm focusing on right now is remove notifications, shut off MS Teams, shut off your email, batch those processes. Spend an hour in the morning, spend an hour in the afternoon, call it. Schedule everything. If you're not using a calendar app, get a calendar app. Use Google, use your Outlook, use whatever it is you want. And just break it up in half-hour increments, hour increments, 15 minutes, whatever it is you feel works best for you, and block out that time. So you know you don't get that time creep where things just keep getting longer and longer and longer. So you can really focus on that, and you can remember Parkinson's law that however much time you give a task, that's how much time it's going to take. And it's amazing how that actually happens. Use maybe lists in conjunction with to-do lists. So just write down everything you got to do. Have it all there. Break it down into projects. Break it down into different pieces. And then when you schedule things, and as the next one talks about again, create a highlight, you can add those things in. But your brain is for creating ideas, not for remembering things. This is something I've learned from Abdaal as well. It's for coming up with ideas, your brain is, not for remembering things. So offload those things. Offload those things on your to-do list, on your maybe list. So you don't have to worry about them, but you know they're not going to be forgotten. Create a highlight. Pick one thing you're going to focus on for today. Maybe it's only a 15-minute task. Maybe it's that walk you like to go do in the afternoon. Maybe it's spending time with your kids. Maybe it's that big project, that big presentation you got to do and you're worried about. Okay, make that your highlight. Make that your pivot point for the day and focus everything else around it. And when you make good progress, or maybe even you finish it and you crush it, at the end of the day, you're like, I got something done. And it's going to feel good. And go to bed. You got to get that high functioning brain activity. You grind it. You can grind for a while. You can keep grinding, but it's going to come back to haunt you at some point, and your productivity is going to start to slip off. And so it's very important, I find, for myself personally, I got to have that time where I stop in the evening, where I focus on other things. And maybe it's even still work-ish related stuff, but it's not as demanding. And it's stuff I like to do and enjoy to do, because we always got those tasks in the day we don't want to do, but you got to have that time of day where you stop and you focus on other things, and you focus on your mental health, your relationships, and things like that. And you got to shut the screens off before bed. Some people say 2 hours. That can be a little hard. That can be a little much depending on how you schedule your life. I find an hour is a good happy medium there to really be able to have the time where your brain winds down and still get that good sleep. So some of the references I talked about, obviously Ali Abdaal, huge place to learn. That's his Skillshare class there. I'll put these links in the description. Make Time, great book. I haven't looked at the blog much, but I've really enjoyed the book. It's really helped me kind of schedule things, how I organize my phone, with the highlights, with the maybe list, things like that, and just knowing, you can make time for things. You don't have to let your task dictate how your day goes. And then that's just the Wikipedia link there if you want to read more about Parkinson's law. That was first told to me by Ali Abdaal from his YouTube channel, but that's a little bit more reference there if you're interested in that. I'd like to thank you for watching this, and if you have any questions, please put them in the description, and I'll do my best to answer them. Thanks.